Every army fell before the overlords, until humans arrived with fire and fury. The Zephyrian Council had ruled the Andromeda sector for 3 millennia. Their crystalline ships, powered by harvested stellar energy, had crushed every resistance with methodical precision. The Kethri warriors, renowned for their tactical brilliance, lasted 47 days. The symbiotic Veltar, who could regenerate their losses in real time, managed 63 days before surrender. Even the mighty Draknor Empire, with their continent-sized dreadnoughts, fell within 2 standard months. Admiral Zenmoth floated in his command chamber, his translucent form pulsing with satisfied energy. The holographic display showed another conquered system, the Terran solar system, a backwater collection of rocky planets orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. "These humans will be simple," his tactical advisor Yorseth reported, tendrils of data flowing between them. Primitive chemical propulsion, fragmented political systems, and weapons that barely harness nuclear fusion. "Our preliminary scans suggest complete conquest within 20 days. Zenmoth's form brightened with amusement. 20 days? You're being generous, Yorseth. Their largest vessel barely reaches a kilometer in length. Our smallest scouts are thrice that size. The first contact with humanity went exactly as expected. The Overlord fleet emerged from hyperspace just beyond Earth's moon, their massive crystalline hulls refracting sunlight into brilliant rainbows. Human governments immediately convened emergency sessions, their crude radio transmissions filled with panic and desperate attempts at diplomacy. The Zephyrian response was swift and absolute: surrender or face extinction. What happened next would puzzle xenobiologists for generations to come. Instead of capitulating like every other species, the humans did something unprecedented. They laughed. Not with hysteria or madness, but with a sound that roughly translated to challenge accepted. In most galactic languages, within hours, every human military force began mobilizing. What confused the overlords wasn't just the defiance, it was the complete lack of despair. "Admiral," Yorseth reported, his energy patterns flickering with confusion, "the humans are singing." Indeed, across every human vessel, soldiers were singing. Battle hymns, ancient war chants, and something called heavy metal that seemed to synchronize their biorhythms into perfect combat readiness. The first engagement occurred near Mars. A small human fleet led by the dreadnought Indomitable Spirit intercepted a Zephyrian patrol squadron. The overlords expected the usual pattern: initial resistance, gradual retreat, then inevitable surrender. Instead, the humans did something no species had ever done. They accelerated toward the enemy. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, her dark eyes reflecting the burning hulk of a Zephyrian scout ship. Her crew worked with mechanical precision, but there was something else, something that made Zenmoth's crystalline form shiver with an unfamiliar sensation. Fear. "All ships. This is Santos," she broadcasted across the human fleet. "Remember what these bastards did to the colonies on Europa. Remember what they promised to do to Earth. Today, we show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home." The human ships were crude compared to Zephyrian technology, but they possessed something the overlords had never encountered: absolute, reckless determination. When their shields failed, humans rammed their vessels into enemy hulls. When their weapons overheated, they performed maneuvers that should have killed their crews from G-force alone. But the truly terrifying moment came when the Indomitable Spirit was boarded. Yorseth personally led the boarding party, confident that close combat would end human resistance quickly. The Zephyrians were energy beings. They could phase through solid matter and discharge devastating electrical attacks. They weren't prepared for humans with flamethrowers. "What are they doing?" Yorseth transmitted in panic as human soldiers advanced through corridors filled with his fallen comrades. "They're using combustion weapons in a pressurized environment." The truth was simple and horrifying. Humans were willing to destroy their own ship if it meant taking the enemy with them. Commander Jake Morrison kicked down a bulkhead door, his flamethrower spewing chemical fire that disrupted Zephyrian energy matrices. Behind him, Sergeant Chen Liu hefted a weapon that was essentially a controlled nuclear detonation, completely impractical and absolutely devastating. "Come on then," Morrison roared at the retreating aliens. "You wanted to see what humanity looks like? This is what we look like when we're pissed off." Within 6 hours, the entire Zephyrian boarding force was eliminated. The indomitable spirit was a burning wreck, but it was still firing, still fighting, still refusing to die. Admiral Zenmoth stared at the tactical display in something approaching horror. In 3 millennia of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. The humans were losing, their technology was inferior, their numbers smaller. But they kept fighting with an intensity that defied all military logic. "Sir," Yorseth whispered, his energy formed dim with exhaustion. "Our projections were wrong. They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to hurt us as much as possible before they die." That was when Zenmoth realized the terrible truth. Every other species the overlords had conquered possessed survival instincts. Rational creatures who chose life over death when defeat became inevitable. But humans seemed to operate on a different principle entirely. They would rather die fighting than live in subjugation. The war lasted 3 months. The Zephyrian overlords, who had conquered half the galaxy, were driven back by a species that painted shark teeth on their fighter craft and wrote poetry about glorious death. Human casualties were catastrophic, but their resolve never wavered. The final battle took place in Earth's orbital space. Zenmoth brought the full might of the Overlord fleet, 700 crystalline dreadnoughts, each capable of sterilizing a continent. The humans met them with everything they had left. Barely 200 ships, most held together with steel patches and prayers. Captain Santos, now commanding the last human dreadnought, opened a channel to the Overlord fleet. Her ship was bleeding atmosphere and her crew was singing again. Something called "We Are the Champions" that somehow made the vacuum of space feel warm with human defiance. "This is Captain Santos to all Zephyrian forces," she transmitted. "You came here thinking we'd kneel. You thought we'd beg. You thought we were just another species to add to your collection." Her voice carried across space with the weight of absolute conviction. "You were wrong. We are human. We don't kneel. We don't beg. And we sure as hell don't quit." The indomitable spirit erupted into flames as it charged straight into the Overlord flagship's main hull. Admiral Zenmoth felt something he'd never experienced in 3,000 years of conquest: respect for an enemy. As his command ship broke apart around him, his final transmission was simple: "Withdraw. All forces withdraw. Mark this system as forbidden. Let the galaxy know. Humanity burns, but it burns bright enough to blind gods." The Zephyrian overlords never returned to the Terran system. Within a generation, the story spread across the galaxy. There was a species that chose fire and fury over surrender, that turned their very destruction into victory. Humanity had lost the war but won something far more valuable: their freedom, and the respect of a galaxy that would never again underestimate the species that refused to kneel.